Hi there, boys and girls. Today for story time we're going to read Mr. Topsy Turvy by Roger Hargreaves. It's a rather interesting story, to say the least. Mr. Topsy Turvy was a funny sort of fellow. Everything about him was either upside down, or inside out, or back to front. Topsy-turvy, in fact. It was all very extraordinary. To give you some idea of how topsy-turvy Mr. Topsy-Turvy was, you ought to see his house. The front door is upside down to start with, and the curtains hang upside down at the windows. And just look at that chimney. All very extraordinary. It's all upside down. You see his door and the curtains and the chimney? Extraordinary. Inside is just the same. Just look at the clock standing on Mr. Topsy-Turvy's mantelpiece. Isn't that the topsiest, turviest clock you've ever seen? It's backwards. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And just look at the way Mr. Topsy-Turvy reads a book. Not only does he read it upside down, but he starts to read it from the last page. Oh dear. And just look where Mr. Topsy-Turvy puts the stamp when he sends a letter to somebody. Have you ever seen anything like it? You're supposed to put your stamp on the top. Right up here, not down here. Now this is the story about the time Mr. Topsy-Turvy came to town where you and I live. Nobody is quite sure how Mr. Topsy-Turvy got there or where he came from, but he did arrive because somebody saw him getting off the train. The trouble was, he did it in a topsy-turvy way and got out the wrong side and fell onto the tracks, which really isn't all that surprising, is it? He went out the wrong door of the train. Poor Mr. Topsy-Turvy. When he picked himself up and managed to find his way out of the station, Mr. Topsy-Turvy went to the hotel to find a room to spend the night. The hotel manager tried not to smile when he saw Mr. Topsy-Turvy walk into his hotel, carrying his suitcase upside down and with his topsy-turvy hat on his head. "Good afternoon, sir," he said. "Can I help you?" Now, something you didn't know about Mr. Topsy-Turvy is the way he speaks. You see, he sometimes says things the wrong way. "Afternoon good," said Mr. Topsy-Turvy to the hotel manager. "I'd room I like." The manager scratched his head. You mean you'd like a room?" he asked. "Please, yes," replied Mr. Topsy-Turvy. Eventually, the hotel manager figured out what Mr. Topsy-Turvy was trying to say, and he was taken up in the elevator to a room. Then Mr. Topsy-Turvy unpacked his suitcase, put on his PJs, and went to bed. He was quite tired after traveling from wherever he had come from. I'm rather surprised he's not sleeping upside down. The following day, Mr. Topsy-Turvy went around the town. But what a fuss he caused. He took a taxi from the hotel, but so confused the taxi driver, trying to tell him where he wanted to go, the poor man drove straight into a traffic light. "Dear oh," said Mr. Topsy-Turvy, "I am sorry very." Then he went into a big department store in the middle of town. He walked up to one of the counters. "I'd like a sock of pears," he said to the lady behind the counter. "You mean a pair of socks?" she smiled, and then she showed him a pair of bright red socks. Mr. Topsy-Turvy put them on his hands. Have you ever put your socks on your hands? It's rather topsy-turvy. Then he tried to leave, but being Mr. Topsy-Turvy, he tried to walk down the up escalator. And all the people who were going up the escalator fell over each other. I know someone who tried that. It was a terrible topsy-turvy jumble. Going down the up escalator or going up the down escalator? That day, Mr. Topsy-Turvy did all sorts of topsy-turvy things. He walked backwards in a crosswalk, and he caused an enormous traffic jam. He went to the library and put all the books upside down on the shelves and made everybody extremely angry. Then he went to an art gallery and insisted on hanging all the pictures upside down so that he could look at them properly. And then, after Mr. Topsy-Turvy had been in town for just one day, he disappeared. Nobody knew how he went or where he went, but he certainly went because he wasn't there anymore. The whole town breathed a sigh of relief. Phew. He's messing everything up. But what the town discovered, even though Mr. Topsy-Turvy had left, was that everything was still topsy-turvy. "Read all about it," shouted the man selling... I said that wrong. "Read all it about," shouted the man selling the newspapers, instead of shouting, "Read all about it." "News is the here," said the television newsman, instead of saying, "Here is the news." "Morning good," people started saying to each other whenever they met, and do you how, instead of how do you do. Everybody was talking topsy-turvy. Because remember, that's how Mr. Topsy-Turvy speaks. Can you think of something to say that's topsy-turvy? Go on, try it. I'm sure you can. The end. Mr. Topsy-Turvy. He's even holding his cane the wrong way. I hope you enjoyed the story. Be careful going down the up escalators or up the down escalators. And don't read your book upside down or from the back. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.